Masechet Chulin, page 52. We'll start with page 51b, 15 lines from the bottom of the page. The subject of nafla, meaning animal, or later on even a bird, that either by itself or forcefully fell to the ground, and is a question of shattering limbs or the level of kashrut or maybe treifa, is the core subject of today. Part of the process of Shechita is, prior to that, is the bdika, meaning searching, digging in to make sure, as we explained yesterday, that the animal has no blemishes, especially it's not shattering limbs. So here, Amar Ameimar Mishmei de Ravdimi Minahar De'ah. He hold that nefula she'amru tzricha bdika keneged bnei me'ayim. When the sages tells us that a fallen animal requires inspection, the inspection must be around the intestine to see whether the organ had been perforated or torn, and obviously that makes the animal treifa. So Rashi said the bdika, the investigation, the search, the inspection has to be if nikra keres chitzonai, the external part of the intestine, or chorim bivnei me'ayim, or perforation inside the intestine. Later you see in the Gemara a requirement of, which we call in Ivrit bdika klalit. Amar le mazutra hache amira mishmei de Rav Papa tzricha bdika keneged beit hachalal kulo. So the Gemara said that the requirement is the inspection around the entire space of the body cavity, in case the ribs or spine have been damaged. But the nefilah, the falling, that's not the core of the hezek. So far is by Rashi. Rashba disputed Rashi, and Rashba said, Chosheshin ole risuk ole kera, we are concerned about shattering limbs or tear, but we're not concerned about perforation. So therefore, ein tzorech livdok chorim. According to Rashba, there is no need to check the part that is perforated. Amar lehuna mar brei de Rav Nechemia le Ravashi simanim mai. So what about the two organs that must be severed in that ritual slaughter, the windpipe and the gullet, esophagus, do they require inspection as well? Amar li simanin kashin hen etzel nefila. Said that simanim are hard and resistant to damage in falling, so consequently you don't need to inspect them. It's a machloket rishonim, is a disputation among our early sages. You see it also later in the Kesef Mishnah and the Rambam. The Kesef Mishnah hold that is no need, en tzarich livdok moach, versus the Rambam said that even the moach needs to be checked. Maybe it's damaged during the process of falling. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Now we're dealing about bird. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, of shenechbat al pnei hamayim. If you have a bird that fell and hit the surface of the water, so obviously it was against the will, not by itself. That's the way Rashi hold. So they said, Kevan sheshat melokomato dayo. Once it swims the full length of its body, it's sufficient to indicate that its limbs not been shattered, similar to an animal that walk after falling. ולא המרן אלא ממטה למעלה, אבל מלמעלה למטה, מה יהודי השפילו. So all we said, it's only below to above, which is the upper stream. But if it swam from above to below, which is downstream, it's only the water that carries it down. So therefore you have to inspect it. V'maya kaimei let leba. But if it's like a gum or any type of pond, so we have no problem with it. Vishada tzivei v'kadmei hakadmei. If straw was scattered in front of it, and the bird overtook it with its swimming, so then the bird overtook it in its own strength, and you don't have to inspect it. Rema, Rabbi Moshe Weisblum, he brings the Gdolei Achronim, dealing with the situation of bird. He says, Afilu pachot ma'asarat tvachim, even less than 10 handbreadth. Also, it's called nefilah. But he expanded that. Glima matiach chayshinan, delo matiach lo chayshinan, of umeupaf lo chayshinan. So if a bird fell on a garment, spread out on over poles, so we must be concerned that its limbs may have been shattered from the impact. If it fell on the garment that was not torn, we don't have to be concerned, but in any event, if the garment was folded, we don't need to be concerned, since it presumably was not taut enough to injure the bird. Izla o mikarve kitre chayshinan, lo mikarve kitre lo chayshinan. If the bird fell on the net whose nuts were woven closely together, we must be concerned that its limbs may have been shattered from the impact. If the nuts were not close together, we don't need to be concerned. Kitna de avid betunei chayshinan, de aigisa u de aigisa lo chayshinan, isuraita chayshinan, kitna de daik venafik, venafitz lo chayshinan. If the bird fell directly on to flax arranged into bundles, so we must be concerned that its limbs may have been shattered from the impact, because the bundles are hard. But if it fell on the side of that side of the bundles, we don't have to be concerned, because it's not fall directly into the bundles, and the impact was damped. Now, if it fell on the bundles of reeds, so it's a concern. If it fell beaten or cumbered flax with the impurities removed, so we don't need to be concerned, since it's soft. If it fell on a flax that was beaten but not combed, we must be concerned, because the residue of flax stalks on the bundles. That's the whole different, the Meiri explained between the two. If it fell on flax that was bundled after it was beaten and calm, daik velo nafetz chayshinan, de'avid bizrei, kevan de'ika bikitrei chayshinan, dakta chayshinan, dakteka lo chayshinan. So if it fell on flax that was beaten but not calm, we must be concerned, because there is a residue of flax stock in the bundles. If it fell on a flax that was bundled after it was beaten and calm, since in it, we must be concerned. If the bird fell on flax tow, a coarse bundle of unspun fiber, we must be concerned. If it fell on fine tow, so it's soft, we should not be concerned. Rashi said, "Daka mina daka v'gam hi ne'oret." So it's not a concern. So it's all depend upon the softness or the hardness or the nivra chayshin. And if the bird fell on navra, so the fibers that grows around the palm tree, chayshinan. So we're concerned that the limbs may be being shattered. However, timchata lo chayshinan. But if a palm bark cut into strips, so we're not concerned. So again, Rashi said, because it's divided to pieces, kitman nehila chayshinan, lo nehila lo chayshinan. If it fell unsifted ashes, we don't be concerned. If it fell unsifted ashes, we're concerned. Why? Because the question is if it was strong or not. If it was ashes hardened, so it's a concern. But if they soft and scatter on impact and it's full of air, so Rashi explained that should not be a concern. 52. Choladak lo chayshinan. If the bird fell on good fine sand, we don't need to be concerned because the sand slided on the impact, cushioning the fall. Cholagas chayshinan. This is a strong, coarse sand, so because the large stone mixed into it. Avak drachim chayshinan, tivna va'avid bizga chayshinan. Lo avid bizga lo chayshinan. So if they fall dust on the road, concerned because dust is impact and hard. If it fell on bundle of straw, it's impact and hard. Chitei v'chol deminai hu chayshinan. So bundle with not, but the bird fell on wheat and all the similar type of grain, like spelt, rye, etc., whose kernel are hard, we should be concerned. So Rashi said that those small gargirim, they are hard. The Meiri said that when it's together as a pile, it's hard. The question is, you use here the term of chitim, the grain. So the question is that grain or not? Meromei Sadeh said that bechozko nechshav kechita. It's not necessarily chita. Anyway, שערי דכל דמיני וחיישינן, כל מיני קטניות, אין בהם משום ריסוקי איברים לבן מן רוביה. So they said here that if it fell on the barley or all similar type of grain, such as oats, we must be concerned. With all type of beans, there's no concern because there is the possible of shattered limbs if the bird fell on them, since their round shape causes the bird to slide when it hits them. Except for rubia, the tiltan, phonogreek. Chimtzei, peas. אפונה, אין בו משום ריסוק איברים. There's no concern of the possible shadow limb, because they are different. Soon we're going by Tosfot few points, but let's finish here. חיפצה יש בו משום ריסוק איברים, כללה דמילתא כל מידי דמישריק, אין בו משום ריסוק איברים, לא מישריק, יש בו משום ריסוק איברים. So the principle of this matter is with anything that sleeps to the sides on impact, there is no concern that there is a possibility that shadow limb. If anything that does not sleep, we concern that it is possible of shadow limbs. So the poskim have a question about afuna, with those peas, if it's in a clean, a vessel, together as a pieces. So the poskim said that yesh lachshoch lerisu kebrim. We should be concerned about shadow limb if it's together in a pile. Rashi, דיבור המתחיל חמצי, he said פישלש, מחליקינן ואינן נכבשים. the book called Sara Torah Lagod Mitzebin, page 211, he said when the time it was exiled to Lemberg, thousands of refugees, and it was a great famine, so they get to the Pesach, and they ask about kitniyot, about different legumes. So one of the questions was the yereka pasulia, fasulia. So it's time of she'u eat. So they come to ask Rabbeinu. So he said, B'sharei Tshuva Siman Taf Nun Gimel, he brings from his uncle that that is type of kitniyot, but he brings the Tosfot. Tosfot here, kitniyot Musukrim. Look carefully at Tosfot. He says, וכן לגרסא דקרוסא משמע דלא אהבו בכלל קטניות. So the question, why is it machmir? Maybe he doesn't want people to depend on them. So there is a Shelot v'Tshuvot Shevet מיהודה. The Rav Rashi, the late Rav Rashi Israel, Rav Isa, the Unterman, he gave the smicha to my late father. Anyway, he expand on this page Kuf Yud Bet, expand on this question. Anyway, let's continue. Dibuk Rav Ashi Shari Ameimar Asar. Now you have a bird's wing that all of a sudden it turns that it's davuk, which means that it's unfortunately touched with the glue, and it's like set up by those a hunter as a trap, and in trying to escape it fell to the ground while stuck to the board. So how you treat it? You concern about risuk evarim, shattering limbs, because it's not standing. If it stands, it's a different story. But here, Rav Ashi Shari, Rav Ashi allow it. He said it permitted. Ameimar asar, Ameimar said it's prohibited. So now is the explanation. Bechad gapa, if it was only one wing was stuck to the board. So according to Shita Mekubetzet, that's the way Rashi explained. The Chule alma lo pligi de shari. Everyone agrees that is permitted because the bird flaps with the other wing. And that's basically lessening the impact of the fall. Ki plige beitrei gape, they disagree with both wings are stuck to the board. Man de asar amar lach heichei neikom, the one who said that is prohibited could have said to you, how will it stand itself up so that it might dampen the impact? Uman de shari, which is Rav Ashi, amar lach, efshar de neikum ha'ikvei de gapei. He says that it's one can permit it, that is possible to stand itself up by using the tips of its wings. So the Rashi said that that's the place that the notzot nechtachot min haknafayim, the feathers separate from the wings. V'ika de'amri, and there are other opinions that hold bitrei gapei kule alma lo pligei da'asir. When there are two wings stuck to the board, everyone agrees that it is prohibited because it cannot dampen the impact. Ki plige bechad gapa, man de shari amar la chavashi. Disputation is with it's only one wing. So Rav Ashi amar lach efshar de parach bechad gapa. So he said that it's possible, since to fly with one wing. So obviously the Meiri and Benu Gershom and others said how that can be. Anyway, some say that he used the language, he says, Ametz et shorshei hanotzot. It's like, in part, somehow, part of that. Anyway, Uman de Asar and Amimar, that is said that is prohibited, could say, Kevan de Bahai lo matze parach, Ba'inam lo matze parach. Since you cannot fly with the wing that's stuck in the vuk, so you cannot fly that untrapped wing. Vehilcheta, and the conclusion is, Bitrei gapei asir. Bechad gapa shari. If you have two wings or stuck, it's prohibited. It's only one wing who's stuck, it's permitted. So Rashi brings the Baal Halachot Gdolot. Baal Halachot Gdolot said, so we don't, nowadays we're not so early that we're not so familiar, so we cannot check it properly. Rashi said, that we can check it in our very best. The Rema and Shulchan Aruch hold the same as Baal Halachot Gdolot, that we cannot depend upon our checking to check it. There's a book, Sefer HaOsafot, he said, based on Tehillim Nun Hei Pasuk Zayin, he says, Mi ten li ever kayona, Aufa eshkona, Midrash Aufa, Bakanaf Echad, Eshkona, Adel Kana, anyway, Nishtabru v'rov salotea. So if most of the animal's ribs were fractured, Tanu Rabbanan, Elu en rov tzlaot. So the sages said, these are most of the ribs. Shesh mikan v'shesh mikan, or 11 mikan v'achat mikan. 6 from here and 6 from there, which is 6 on each side. Or 11 from here and from there, which is 22 ribs, are significant. 4 tray 4, 11 to each. So 12 fractured ribs, that's the majority. So it's the Diyun b'Achronim is a discussion among the Achronim, how exactly you count, if it's which side, and there are varied of views. Some say that it's 26 if you go by Yad Yehuda and Yored Anundalet, 13. The brighter go by 11. There are those who said 13. There are those who said it's a Dat Torah and Yad Yehuda expand. You see also in Shechitat Chullin expand. Amar Ziri Umechetzian klapei shidra. Says this applies only when the ribs were fractured from the half of the rib toward the spine, but not if they are fractured on the other half. Amar Rabba bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan ubetzlaot gdolot sheyesh bahem moach. Says that all this apply only to fractures occurring in large ribs that contain narrow. Fractures in small ribs do not make the animal treifa. So the Pri Megadim, he said that he argued with Gdolei Israel. He says when it's come to ofod, when it comes to bird, it's not the same dinim. He argued that it's in ofot ein moach ba'atzamot. They're all equal, kulam shavot. So the question is, he argued, can you really compare fall like bird to an animal in this din or not? But anyway, Amar Rabba bar Chana me'ochlan ubetzlaot gdolot sheyesh bahen moach. אמר אולה בן זכאי אמר, נעקרו ברוב צד אחד, נשתברו ברוב שני צדדים. So if the ribs were dislocated from the spine, even if the majority, which is the 6 dislocated ribs, is enough to make the animal treifa, only if the ribs were broken is the majority of both sides necessary. Rabbi Yochanan אמר בין נעקרו בין השתברו ברוב שני צדדים. Says whether they were dislocated or broken, the animal is treifa only with a majority of both sides. אמר רב, צלע נקרא צלע וחוליה עמה טריפה. So he said if a rib dislocated and attached to verbena was torn out with it, so the animal is treifa even if the spinal cord remains intact. אמר לי רב כהנא ורב אסי לרב נקרא צלע מכאן וצלע מכאן וחוליה קיימת, מהו? So Rav Kahana and Rav Asi said to Rab, if a rib dislocated from here and another rib from there, which is both ribs connected to a single verbena, were located, but the verbena itself remains intact, how you treat it? What's the halacha? So he said, Rav said to them, Amar lehu, did I say it? אמרו לה בן זכאי אמר נעקרו ברוב צד אחד, נשתברו ברוב שני צדדים, רבי יוחנן בן נעקרו נשתברו ברוב שני צדדים. Anyway, there is a ראשונים that disputed if נולדה וחסר לה אז טריפה, but anyway. אמר רב נקרא צלע וחוליה אמר טריפה, אמר לי רב כהנא ורב אסי לרב נקרא צלע מכאן וצלע מכאן וחוליה קיימת, מהו? אמר לו גיסטרה קאמתו. So Rav said to them, are you saying that the animal was... Now we'll go to the third Shmuah. Shmuel also said, ובשר החופר ובקרס ברובו, or if the flesh that envelops the majority of the ramen was damaged in its majority, so they say the animal is treifa. By Rav Ashi ברוב קרוע ברוב נטול. So Rav Ashi raises dilemma. Is this referring to even the case where the majority of the length of the flesh was torn? Or it referring only to a case where the majority of the flesh was removed, but it was torn along the majority of the length, and the animal remained kosher. So they try to reconcile this predicament, this dilemma. In the response, tifshut lemidetnan, with referring to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, keres apnimit shenikva o shenikra rov hachitzona. So they said, if an internal ramen was perforated or most of the external ramen was torn, the animal is treifa. V'amri ba'ma'arava, and they say in the west, which is Eretz Israel, mishmed Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina, that's what we learn on page 50b, kol ha'keres kulo zoi keres apnimi. So they said the entire ramen is the internal ramen. So what's the external? Ve'ezu keres hachitzona. What exactly the Mishnah refer when they said external ramen? So it is basar hachofet rov hakeres, the flesh that envelops the majority of the ramen. So apparently the animal is a treifa even if the flesh is torn in its majority. The Gemara rejected, and they said mideu tama ela lishmuel. So they said this explanation is meant only to clarify the statement of Shmuel. Shmuel does not agree with the opinion of the Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, as this is what Rabbi Yaakov ben Nachmani said, that Shmuel said, the case of most of the external ramen was torn, mentioned in the Mishnah where the animal is treifa, is not referring to the flesh enveloping the majority of the ramen was torn, but rather where the majority of the ramen was itself was torn. So the Rashba explained, so Vadai Shmuel lo maskim medivra Mishnah. For sure Shmuel did not agree with what they say Mishnah. Otherwise he will say it mipi Shmuel. So then they say clearly Imra meforeshet mekom she'ein bo milat. So the place in the ramen that has no tool, which is the internal ramen is a place in the ramen that has no wool, which is the downing projections on the inside of the ramen, and therefore you can say ifshar lomar nikra nital rubo. So one cannot prove anything that about the statement of Shmuel based on the explanation of the Mishnah offered by Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. So if that's the case, why did Rav Kahana and Rav Ashi hold that way. It's not. They said if Rav says that the animal is treifa, if a rib and part of its vertebra were dislocated, so that's basically the halacha. And kal vachomer, if the ribs opposite one another were dislocated in addition to part of the attached vertebra. So the Gemara answered and they said lo shmialu de Rav. So Rav Kana and Rasi still did not hear the ruling of Rav when they asked him. So the Gemara asked, "V'livu minei kede Rav." So they should ask the question, what exactly the circumstance, the case that Rav is talking? Because they still don't know that Rav hold that is treifa when part of the rib was dislocated with part of the chulia. So why they didn't ask when they see two ribs with part of the chulia? They should ask specifically the two rib opposite to one another. So the Gemara said Rav Kana and Rav Asi have an issue, have a suffix. They really have they unclear in these two situations. Savre v'live min echada v'defarish lan tarte. So let us ask him one question through which will explain to us two different cases. Di beinen min echada. If we ask him about only one dislocated rib, hanicha yamart lan treifa. So if one dislocated rib, we understand and it will work out well if he says that the animal is treifa, because basically he can infer that kal vachomer kol sheken tarti. So all the more so if two ribs opposite one another are dislocated, the animal is treifa. However, if he said to us that it's kosher, akate tarte kami bayalan, we must still ask with regard to a case of two dislocated ribs. So the Gemara challenged and said, Yache ashtanami dekabayim minei tarte. If that's the case, then now when they ask him about two ribs, they may not receive an answer with regard to both cases. Hanicha yamar lo kshera kol sheken chada v'yamar lo trefa akati chada mibayelo. It works well if he says to them that the animal with two dislocated ribs opposite one another is kosher, since they can infer that all the more so it is kosher if only one rib is dislocated. However, if he says to them that is treifa, v'yamaru treifa akati chada mibayelu, so they must still ask with regard to the case with it's only one dislocated rib. So they said, Savrei, imken mirtach karatach. So the reason is that it is better to ask about a case where two rib opposite one another or they're located, because if so, and the Rav hold that the animal is treifa, even the rib is dislocated, then he will become angry and respond. If the animal with even one dislocated rib is treifa, is necessary to ask about the animal with two dislocated ribs. Anyway, כאמר לי ולא רתח. The Gemara objected and said, but they did say this question to him, and guess what? It not became angry, despite the fact that he hold that even one dislocated rib makes the animal treifa. So he said, "Kivan de ka'amar lu gistra ka'amru hainu ritrei." When they said to him, Are you saying that the animal that was sliced in half is a treifa? This is his angle. Rav Kahana and Rav Asi understood that this, from the response, that an animal with two dislocated ribs opposite one another is a nevela, is carcass. But an animal with one dislocated rib is a treifa. So now the Gemara brings three shmuot of Shmuel in regard to treifot, that one dealing with the dislocated ribs. Amar Rabba bar Rav Sheila, Amar Rav Matna, Amar Shmuel, ne'ekrat sela me'ikara. He said if a rib was ripped from its root, וגולגולת שנכבשה, or if a skull was crushed in its majority, שנכבשה ברובה, even it's not total. Rashi explained. Anyway, ובשר החופה את רוב הכרס, and if the flesh that envelops the majority of the ramen was damaged in its majority, so בשר החופה את רוב הכרס ברובו טריפה, so the animal is טריפה. So now the Gemara go by the first Shmuah. נקראת סלע מעיקרה טריפה. Did really Shmuel say that if a rib was ripped from its root, the animal is טריפה? Says that Veramini, that's a contradiction from another statement of Shmuel. It's a based on the Mishnah Aholot, chapter 2, Mishnah 3, page 52b. That's a Mishnah in Tractate Aholot, chapter 2, Mishnah 3, but we should know that it's also, we study it on page 42b. Kama chisaron bashidra. How much is considered a deficiency in the spine of a corpse, so that it will not be considered a full corpse that will make one impure in the Tum'at oil in a tent? Beit Shammai אומרים שתי חוליות. Beit Shammai say two missing vertebrae. And Beit Hillel אומרים חוליה אחת, one vertebra. So, ואמר רב יהודה אמר שמואל וכן לטריפה. So the same way as Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel disagree when it's come to Tum'ah, also in Treifa. So according to Beit Hillel, an animal missing only one chuliya, verberta, is Treifa. So as you see that Shmuel hold that the missing chuliya makes the animal a Treifa, but dislocated rib does not. So that's basically contradicted to what Shmuel himself said. In the previous Amud, he said that the animal is Treifa even if one rib is dislocated. So they said, Hacha tzela belo chuliya, hatam chuliya belo tzela. Here where Shmuel said that the rib ripped from its root make the animal treifa, he is referring to a case where the rib was torn out without the chuliya, the verberta. And there where he says that the missing verberta makes the animal treifa, according to Beit Hillel, he is referring to a case where the verberta was missing without the rib being dislocated, but if the rib itself was ripped from the root, the animal is treifa. So the Gemara challenged this explanation, said, Bishlama tzela belo chuliya mashkachat la. So they find the rib dislocated without chuliya, that's you can find commonly. However, ela chuliya belo tzela eche mashkachat la. Where do you find a case where missing chuliya without dislocated rib? So they said, Beshilhei kaflei, can happen at the end of the flanks where there are chuliyot with no rib attached to them. Shechitat Chullin expand on that a lot, how it happens. That should be upon the list of leniency of Beit Shammai and stringency of Beit Hillel. אמר לי כי איצ'יל עניין תומה איצ'יל דאבו לבית שמאי לחומרה. So the Me'il Shmuel explained that when the question was asked, it was asked with regard to a tum'ah, to ritual impurity of a dead body. That is the sort of the dispute between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, and on that matter, Beit Shammai constitute a lechumra, the stringency. Da'avulu Beit Shammai lechumra. So the parallel disagreement when it comes to Trifont is not mentioned explicitly in any Mishnah or Braita, so therefore omitted from the list in Tractate Odayot of Kulei Beit Shammai v'Chumrei Beit Hillel. V'gulgolet shenechbesa beruba. So now the Gemara continue with the return with Shmuel's statement. Or if the skull was crushed in its majority, so the animal is treifa. By Rabbi Yirmiyah, rov govha or rov heikeifa. Rabbi Yirmiyah raised a predicament. He asked a question, this referring to the majority of the height, so the majority of the circumference. And teiko. So that's basically machloket rishonim, and the halacha is a sfek deoraita lechumra. It goes stringent when it's sfek deoraita. Then the third Shmuel of Shmuel said, "Ubasar hachofer of hakeres berubo." So the flesh that envelops the majority of the ramen was dangerous. So now we go to the third Shmuel. Shmuel also said, "Ubasar hachofer of hakeres berubo," or if the flesh that envelops the majority of the ramen was damaged in its majority, so they say the animal is treifa. By Ravashi berov karua berov natul. So Ravashi raises dilemma: is this referring to even the case where the majority of the length of the flesh was torn, or it referring only to a case where the majority of the flesh was removed, but it was torn along the majority of the length, and the animal remained kosher? So they try to reconcile this predicament, this dilemma, in the response, tifshut lemidetnan, with referring to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, keres apnimit shenikva o shenikra rov hachitzona. So they said, if an internal ramen was perforated, or most of the external ramen was torn, the animal is treifa. V'amre ba'ma'arava, and they say in the west, which is Eretz Israel, Mishmed Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, that's what we learn on page 50b, Kol hakeres kulo, zoi keres apnimi. So they said the entire ramen is the internal ramen. So what's the external? Ve'ezu keres hachitzona. What exactly the Mishnah refer when they said external ramen? So it is basar hachofet rov hakeres, the flesh that envelops the majority of the ramen. So apparently the animal is a treifa even if the flesh is torn in its majority. The Gemara rejected, and they said, "Mideu tama ela lishmuel." So they said this explanation is meant only to clarify the statement of Shmuel. Shmuel does not agree with the opinion of the Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, as this is what Rabbi Yaakov ben Nachmani said. That Shmuel said, Rabbi Yaakov ben Nachmani amar Shmuel, mekom shein bo meilat. The case of most of the external ramen was torn, mentioned in the Mishnah where the animal is treifa, is not referring to the flesh enveloping the majority of the ramen was torn, but rather where the majority of the ramen was itself was torn. So the Rashba explained, so Vadai Shmuel lo maskim l'divrei Mishnah. For sure Shmuel did not agree with what they say Mishnah. Otherwise he will say it mipi Shmuel. So then they say clearly, Imra meforeshet, mekom she'ein bo milat. So the place in the ramen that has no tool, which is the internal ramen is a place in the ramen that has no wool, which is the downing projections on the inside of the ramen, and therefore you can say if shalomar nikra nital rubo. So one cannot prove anything that about the statement of Shmuel based on the explanation of the Mishnah offered by Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina.